We could grab, 20 seconds from that and make a cut copy out of it. Where can you think of a moment, Richard, this morning where Bob made a point that would make a good debrief?
Well, I will say something about debriefs. I'd like to think of them as the reporter is part of the cut and copy instead of having that typical, kind of formulaic sound of the rap or of the voicer. Here's where the reporter acts as the cut in the copy. And this especially works well if you have somebody on the scene of something and they're describing an instance of what's going on. And back to what Julianne said, typically when a reporter does like a two-way with me live on the air, they're speaking to me. They're talking to me and ultimately talking to the listeners. And it's very easy to pull out a clip from that, a 20-second or a 15-second clip from what the reporter was saying, because they're not in that like voicer mode, or they're not in that kind of formal. All right, I'm the reporter, and I'm gonna give you the here's what's happening. Blah, 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 blah. Instead, it's automatically conversational because it's part of a two-way, so it fits really well into that debrief style.
So there are several ways we do it, like Richard mentioned. Pull it out of the two-way, the interview that's recorded. Take it in over the phone when somebody's out in the scene. We can also, I did this just last night with a reporter. We just got a quick update on Dominique Strauss-Kahn, the IMF head story, and wasn't easy for this reporter to write up a full spot, but I asked her to just summarize for me what she read in the court papers that were filed. And she gave me 15 or 20 seconds about what new conditions the defendant's seeking for bail. It was brief, it was focused, and we could write the workhorse information into it and out of it.
And also, Julianne, I can add, it's like typically one or two little nuggets of information. And if you think of the whole story as like a cut and copy, so the host or the newscaster would start with a bunch of facts, here's this, and then the reporter would come in and there's another little nugget, and then the host might wrap it up at the end, and there's your story.
Mm-hmm. So finally, I'll have a little sample for you here. This one's probably longer than ones that we would usually do, but let's listen to the tone of voice of the reporter here. We call this a cut copy. Maybe it's familiar to you. The first graph is what Richard, the host, would read. The quotes, that's the debrief, and then afterwards Richard would come back. So let's hear the reporter's part here.
Not playing through, Julianne.
Okay, I'm going to try it again. Forgive me, everyone. We lost our opportunity to rehearse. Okay, audio not working through webinar, so forgive me. But if you can read basically what I transcribed of what this reporter said. I have another one afterwards, too. And we do present the host with the script so they know what's coming. So we had another one on Trump just the other day, and our program director actually heard this. He thought it jumped right out of the radio. He really liked it. Instead of a reporter just doing a summary in a spot on Trump not being in the race, we got him to talk about three different aspects of Trump, and this was one of the three that I thought worked best. And by the way, this is somebody who's never done radio before, so I find that debriefs are a great opportunity to get print reporters on the radio. Tell me a moment of your story. Bring up something that we may have missed in the copy or AP didn't have. So I think that's what happened here. Sorry, folks, if the audio's not working. I'm going to try again. Still nothing?
No.
Okay. If anyone would like to follow up with me, I'd be happy to send you an MP3 of these. But hopefully you can see in the script what we're doing here. Have any more thoughts on this, Richard?
I really wish we could hear it, because they really do. There was a great thing you just said before, that our program director said that they pop, and they certainly do pop, because part of the thing is it gets out of that rhythm. It's kind of an expected rhythm. I always find, in the last few years in our newscast as well, it's kind of, here it comes. It gives it that public radio sound, and I think this makes it pop. This definitely comes out of that mold or that model and makes it sound a little bit different, a little more interesting.
I think they're best when they're not written as well. To be honest, we have a dozen reporters in this newsroom at WMIC, and all of them think of this differently. Some of them resist doing it. Others love it. Others insist on writing it. Others say it depends on the story. If it's a legalese story and you really don't want to be speaking inaccurately off the cuff. So we take each one as it comes, but to me the best ones are the organic moments where we pulled it out of a conversation live on the air that's on record, or we pulled them into the news booth and, like I did last night, and said, tell me what you found out in that deposition. Boom.
Because ultimately they're all conversational.
And let me go back actually to, my no-nos on this. Opinion, no. I don't want to corner a reporter into giving I think. They should not begin with I think usually. They shouldn't have to fake it. We should just converse in the studio naturally and say only what they know. And I've also had, discussions with reporters about not just voicing it differently than their spot. So to me, that's not organic either. But there's a good way to do a debrief and make it sound good. And I'd love to send you these, so forgive me for them not working. We're getting toward the end here, and I'd love to talk about exceptions with you. I mentioned that maybe there's a high bar, or occasionally you need the word quote. I think if you know your host and they really like to say President Obama or Obama, and you shop, by all means do it. But you're in control of your own voice and your own writing usually, and you can set the bar for yourself for how much more conversational you want to be. This is just sort of my own little mantra here. To me, the voice is mightier than the pen. So it's always a striving for me as well. I think my writing can always be more casual, that much more accessible and broadcast friendly. I highly recommend people read this at least once a year. And it's such an age-old guide, but they actually recommend that broadcast writing, that print writing adopt broadcast-style writing as well. And I do see on our website, I'm pleased to see that there's often contractions and casual writing, very accessible. Never dumbed down, never grammatically incorrect, but visit Strunk and White, and I think there's a lot of fat we can get out of our writing to sound better. And that concludes my presentation. This just sort of reminds you all what George mentioned at the beginning about the printing conference coming up where I will be as well.